All right, Tucker, this is our 8th ever episode of the Lineup Legends podcast. Week 8 under wraps. How you feeling?
Week 8 has ups and downs. Dalvin Cook just being a monster is probably the biggest highlight, but I think it felt a little bit more like normal football to a degree this week for whatever reason. I don't know. I think people performed the way you'd expect them to.
Yeah, as a Dalvin Cook manager, pretty hype. As a Packers fan, not that hype, but you know what? If there's any positive in a loss like that, it's that Dalvin Cook won me my week, so I'll take that. I'll take it.
There you go.
All right, well, let's get started with why don't we go ahead and dive into the Thursday night game because we never got a chance to talk about it. We have Falcons, Panthers. Let's start with the Falcons here. Julio absolutely went off, 7 catches, 137 yards, but he was kind of the only notable player. It seems kind of like this was a classic Thursday night game in that both sides somewhat struggled offensively with, a few fewer days of rest in between their games. What did you see in the Falcons' run game between Brian Hill and Todd Gurley?
So Brian Hill did rack up some carries here, 11 carries. Todd Gurley was just very ineffective. He got 18 carries, but only put up 46 yards, 2.6 average yard per carry. Kind of saved himself with a touchdown. But I don't think Brian Hill will be getting this many carries moving forward. Todd Gurley did look a little bit. I don't want to say necessarily injured, but he seemed like he was hobbling a little bit at points. So I guess it's something to monitor. See how he practices this upcoming week. I don't particularly want Falcons running back moving forward.
Yeah.
But if Todd Gurley's injured, that would be that's an open spot for a running back. So if you're needy, pay attention.
Yeah, it feels like they're never going to give him that full workload just given his knee condition. So I think Hill's occasionally going to have games where he gets this many carries, but I wouldn't expect it with any sort of frequency. I'm personally not picking up Brian Hill. In the receiving game, Calvin Ridley goes down with an injury. Apparently, he's got a shot to suit up next week, given that they have extra long time for recovery with the Thursday night game. But apparently, I believe it's a midfoot sprain. So what I'm reading is there's a really good chance they just hold him out this week because they have a bye next week, give him some extra time to recover. So we'll see about that one. But he had 3 catches, 42 yards before heading out with an injury. Looks like he was on his way to a solid day. Unfortunate for people like me who started him. Of course, you're starting him, who kind of got hit with that halftime departure. But, hopefully we get him back. He's worth the wait. Let's go ahead and move on to the Panther side of the ball, where I was equally as disappointed with DJ Moore, who had no catches until that final drive. And then, of course, Robbie Anderson still puts up numbers with 5 catches for 48 yards. Are you still seeing Robbie Anderson as the wide receiver 1 in this offense? And do you think that this week further separated the gap between them? Because I know you're all in on Robbie, or Robbie Robinson, as you called him a few episodes ago.
Robinson. Good old Robbie Robinson. Listen, he's still the wide receiver 1 on this team. I think he's kind of got that role locked. I don't think DJ Moore's, he might have some good weeks, but I don't think DJ Moore's going to take that from Robbie at this point. DJ Moore did save himself with those last 2 catches a little bit. Got you a couple points. But this game should have been a smash for both of them. The Falcons' secondary is not good, and it should have been really good. Teddy didn't play well, and that kind of affected both of them. Pretty unfortunate.
Yep. I think. Yeah, this was really just seemed like a classic slow Thursday night game. Pretty disappointing across the board. But let's go ahead and move on to a better game with a surprising outcome. Vikings-Packers. Dalvin Cook just absolutely dominates this game. 4 touchdowns. He had, 30 carries for 163 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground, and then 2 catches for 63 yards and a touchdown through the air. Man, I'm seeing Dalvin Cook as is he the RB1 the rest of the way? McCaffrey's coming back from injury, so that you kind of want to temper the expectations there. Does Mike Davis get more work moving forward? Kamara's in the conversation, of course, he always will be. But, given that Gary Kubiak's run-heavy offense on this Minnesota team, given that Cook is back and healthy, after this monster performance, he has to be in the conversation, right?
Definitely in the conversation. So I move back and forth based on matchup usually every week on if it's going to be him, Kamara, maybe Aaron Jones if when he's healthy, and Derrick Henry. Those guys are my top 4 every single week. And 5, I don't know how many I listed. And yeah, McCaffrey's obviously going to be in the conversation when he comes back. But there is word that Mike Davis is going to be taking, a little bit of that role, especially with McCaffrey coming back from injury. I think they want to take it easy on him at first. However, he basically had an extra week because he was almost ready to go this week. He'll get an extra week and then play next week. But yeah, Dalvin Cook definitely in the RB number 1 overall conversation. Sure, especially if he's getting 30 carries. Now, given the fact that he's getting 30 carries and he's having passing down roles as well, how does that affect Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson in your book, Steve?
I think it's really going to hurt them, especially with the emergence of Justin Jefferson. Like, it used to be, Minnesota's a run-heavy team, but their guy when throwing the ball is Adam Thielen. But now with Justin Jefferson emerging, demanding targets himself, you saw them both getting 4 targets, 3 catches each. I think it's just going to be really split. And I think as we head into the winter here, winter months down the stretch, I think they're going to rely on Dalvin Cook even more now that he's fully healthy. Especially after this game. Like, they beat the Packers. No one expected the Vikings to win this game, even without Aaron Jones on the Packers side of the ball. I think maybe the Vikings take a look at themselves and, maybe we need to really make this our identity. Just ride Dalvin Cook and try and win games on the ground, because we know their defense isn't winning them any games. So I'm not sure that they want to be involved in any shootouts here moving forward. So I think it really hurts Thielen, really hurts Jefferson. They'll both have their big games, but I think it's going to be pretty hard to predict. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, they play a lot of games in the cold in Minnesota, so they're probably going to try and run and run and run. Makes sense to me.
Yep. On the Packers side of the ball, Aaron Jones misses another game, and Jamal Williams, whenever Aaron Jones misses, he's an RB1 play. 16 carries, 75 yards. And then, gosh, he's so valuable in the passing game. 6 catches for 27 yards. On that last drive, he was racking up PPR points like crazy. I was super hyped to see that when they were just trying to nickel and dime down the field to get a shot at a play to win the game. It would have been a touchdown, extra point. So if Aaron Jones misses next week, we know Jamal Williams is another RB1 play. Davante Adams, 7 catches, 53 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Thoughts on Davante this week?
So I was driving along during the beginning of this game because I had to drive home from a little trip. Anyways, I got a little update on my phone. I was like, ding, Davante Adams touchdown. I'm like, okay, that's not surprising. A couple minutes into the game, Davante Adams scores, and like 10 minutes later, the same exact notification pops up. I'm like, oh, Davante Adams, a second touchdown. Great, good. Davante Adams is the wide receiver 1 the rest of the season at this point. He's just insane, and Rodgers loves looking at him in the end zone. So, he's a winner for me all the way. Hopefully Aaron Jones gets back at it. They got a bye next week, right?
Green Bay already had their bye.
Oh, they already had their bye. Okay, yeah. So hopefully Aaron Jones is back next week, and he'll be a play as well. But between those two, I don't think you really necessarily want to start anyone else. Robert Tonyan actually had a pretty good game, but I don't know how we're going to trust that moving forward.
Yeah, I think the thing that really separates Davante from all the other receivers is just he's going to have the target share every single week. Unless the Packers go and trade for another weapon like Will Fuller that they've reportedly been interested in, Davante is going to get 10 plus targets a game, and he's getting those targets from Aaron Rodgers, the greatest quarterback of all time. So at that point you have to be thinking he's the wide receiver 1 the rest of the way, no doubt about it. Robert Tonyan, I agree. This was a good showing for him. 7 targets, 5 catches, 79 yards. People who were a little down on him after last week need to hold on because this was a really good showing for him, and I think a good sign of things to come. Maybe he can get maybe 5 targets a game. That'd be great for him. But yeah, I think those are the 2 guys that are going to be notable in the pass catchers on the Packers unless they go and trade for Will Fuller or someone like AJ Green at the deadline.
Steven, do you see Robert Tonyan as a startable every week tight end at this point?
Right now, yeah, I do. I think maybe when Aaron Jones gets back, maybe he loses a target or two. But I mean, Jamal Williams saw 6 targets in the passing game this week. I really think Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams played the exact same role. So Tonyan, even with Sternberger, Jay Sternberger, their other tight end, getting pretty involved today, more involved than normal, Tonyan still got his. So I'm on him as until I'm proven otherwise. I think you can start him every week.
Right. I am a little bit worried about the Packers having to play from behind and pass a lot, given Dalvin Cook's performance. So I'm a little wary on Tonyan. I wouldn't hopefully you have other options. That's my take on it, but he definitely could be a viable start every week. He's probably on the border, probably just inside top 12 tight end for me.
Yeah, I think he's on the fringe as well. And I think when you look at matchups where the Packers are going to have to throw the ball, that's when you want to look at him. But I think when they're expected to dominate in games, all targets in the passing game they do have are going to go to Davante Adams and Aaron Jones. And the rest of the guys are just going to be begging for scraps at that point. So I agree with you. I think that you have to play this based on matchup, but I think he has the potential to be a weekly start.
All right.
Okay, let's move on to the Titans and the Bengals. Kind of a surprising outcome here. Bengals 31, Titans 20. I was pretty excited for this game. Had a big over/under. Was excited to see how Joe Burrow plays in this big time game that they had coming. Joe Burrow puts up 249 yards and 2 touchdowns. And T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd both had good games. Both with 6 catches. Higgins had 78 yards. Tyler Boyd had 67 and a touchdown. AJ Green kind of disappointed here with 2 catches, 19 yards. So maybe they're not featuring him as much right now. I don't know. That was kind of our speculation. But what should we expect for this receiving core moving forward? Because right now there isn't a lead guy really emerging. You even saw Auden Tate getting 7 catches. So how should we plan moving forward? How do you see the targets falling on the Bengals?
So I see it going more or less like it did this game, probably minus Auden Tate. I mean, Auden Tate had a strong second half of the season last year, but I don't see him being regularly involved. For me, it's going to be Tyler Boyd first, then T. Higgins every week, and those guys are the guys I want to start every single week. AJ Green definitely going to move down on my board, just given the fact that he only had 5 targets to everyone else's 7 or 9. It's a little bit concerning. I'm not sure if he was hampered by injury or what, which is why maybe Auden Tate went in. Wouldn't surprise me, but keep an eye out on Green, see if he's hurt. Auden Tate could be something to look at moving forward if AJ Green is hurt or going to miss time or something like that. I'm not entirely sure why he was so limited in terms of the passing game, but that's my take on it.
Yeah, still had 5 targets, so mainly just an inefficient day for him. Maybe he was hampered, who knows? But if they're trying to sell him at the deadline, this wasn't the best sales pitch, I would say.
Not so much.
On the ground, Jamal Williams, similar vibes as Giovanni Bernard. As long as Joe Mixon's out, keep plugging in Bernard. They have a bye next week, so this is probably Gio's last game in the featured role here. But he had a great performance, 15 carries, 62 yards, and a touchdown. And then added to his value with 3 catches for 16 yards and a touchdown through the air. I know you started Gio, so you're pretty happy with this. And I think, as long as Mixon's out, you can keep rolling with him. Quick question on Gio. Are you going to roster him even after Mixon comes back? Has he reached handcuff value, or are you tossing him back to the waiver wire and just going to assume Mixon is healthy the rest of the way?
I'll probably hold on to him, I think, until I know Mixon's going to play a full game healthy. I think he will after the bye. I think Joe Mixon should be back. But, if he comes back and immediately re-aggravates something like that, which is pretty common, I want to be able to have Gio. I want to see Mixon play a full game, and then I'll say, okay, Mixon's back. I don't need Gio. Here's a question for you. In the past 2 games, Gio Bernard has been extremely productive. And
I knew you were going to go with that. I knew you were going there with this. I hate this.
I mean, okay, what's your take here? If you were a coach in the NFL, and this isn't necessarily what we're discussing in terms of fantasy, but if you were a coach in the NFL, would you say Gio Bernard's outproduced Mixon? I think on a consistent basis. I want to start Gio this week. Would you ever do that
Over Mixon?
over Mixon?
No. I don't think that Bernard has outproduced Mixon this year. He's looked fine in the games that Mixon hasn't played in, but
I would say their offense has looked better overall.
well, how much of that can you attribute? You can't actually do that because the game where Mixon went off for, what was it, 42 fantasy points, something like that.
You're going to hold on to that one forever, huh?
The offense looked amazing. The offense looked amazing. And on top of that, it's like Joe Burrow's playing more games, getting more games under his belt. I mean, Bernard has looked good in the offense, but I don't think the offense has looked good because of Bernard. It's clear that they don't even trust him with a bell cow role. They gave 10 carries to Samaj P. Capping Bernard at 15 carries. So it's clear that they never want him to be that featured back. Otherwise, the distribution would have been closer to something like 20 and 5 carries. But I think your point does have merit in the sense that I don't think Mixon is going to have the full. We saw a couple games where Mixon was getting all the work of the passing game, which was great. I think maybe Bernard has kind of squeaked his way back into that passing role, unfortunately. I think they'll keep getting Mixon maybe 3, max 4 targets a game, but I think this has proven that Bernard is a weapon in the passing game, and I think he'll still have that role, especially because they'll probably want to be careful and keep Mixon healthy, not give him a ridiculous amount of carries. So, I mean, naturally, I think this is gonna little bit cap Joe Mixon's ceiling.
Yeah, Gio Bernard did average 4.1 yards a carry, which is better than most of Mixon's games. But unfortunately, I'm sure my love for Gio and my hatred for Joe Mixon.
Hey, whatever can fit your hating Joe Mixon narrative, you will make it work. So you know what? I'm just gonna wait. I'll patiently wait 2 weeks until Mixon is back on the field, and we'll have another conversation then.
Mixon will be back. He'll be starting, and that's what I expect. All right, going to the Titans side of the ball. Ryan Tannehill, 233 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Not necessarily the day you wanted to see from him or expected to see from him, but Derrick Henry still gets it done again on the ground. 18 carries, 112 yards, and a touchdown. That man's just a freak. He's just a freak. Every single week he's getting it done. And then I think the most interesting part of this game, in terms of the Titans receiving core, is Corey Davis. Another 8 catches, 128 yards, and a touchdown on 10 targets. We talked about him a little bit later last week, just on if he's a startable wide receiver, and I think we both had our doubts. Anything changed since then?
Honestly, not really. Like, I feel like you're going to be able to start him in good matchups and hope, but I think at the end of the day, each game might be AJ Brown or Corey Davis. I'm not sure he's going to have these games with any sort of consistency. I think at this point he has, 8 catches for 120 yards on 10 targets. Like, he's rosterable at this point. You can't deny that. But I'm not rushing out to spend fab on him. He's one of those guys, like, if I need a plug and play bye week wide receiver 3, sure. If Corey Davis is there, it's a good matchup, I'll play him. But I don't see the consistency with him. Do you?
This season I think I have. It's hard to argue with it at this point. Every single time he's played, he's scored double-digit fantasy points. And so I think at this point he's an every week flex for me. I think you can put him in your flex and be happy with it. Of course, this is probably going to be the week where he's just garbage. But I think at this point, like, Corey Davis has convinced me that you can just throw him in your flex and be semi-comfortable with it. On the flip side, you get AJ Brown getting only 4 catches on 7 targets for 24 yards and a touchdown. He does save you a little bit with that touchdown. So that could theoretically flip-flop on any given week. But I think even last week, AJ Brown had a great week, and so did Corey Davis. They both did well. So there's potentially this is coming from Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith, much less productive this game and the game before. What do we think about Jonnu Smith at this point?
Well, that's my hesitation there with Corey Davis is I don't think it's ever going to be normal for Jonnu Smith to only get 2 targets. That being said, that's a few weeks now that Jonnu's been disappointing, and we know he had a really touchdown heavy first half of the season. So I'm wondering if his value is a little bit hyped up because of that, those touchdown performances. He was due for some regression, but I think normally we're going to see Jonnu get so at least closer to 4 or 5 targets on a weekly basis, if not more. That's why I feel like it's a little bit fluky for the 10 targets from Corey Davis. But you're right, Davis has been consistent enough to warrant rostering and a flex play. But I think we can expect better from Jonnu. But I am a little hesitant. If he's not getting you that touchdown, he's not going to be doing it. He's not going to be getting the job done in yards or catches. He's not this PPR guy, especially in Tennessee's offense. So I'm not sure. I think I was looking at him as like a top 7 or 8 play, but now I might have him, around tight end 9 or 10. Is that too low for you?
I think that's where I'm at as well. He just hasn't been getting the targets. He hasn't been getting the red zone looks. Ever since AJ Brown came back, it seems like his touchdown rate has just dropped dramatically. Now, his name is Jonnu Smith, and that's not a big name technically speaking, but for tight ends, I would say it is. You could potentially try to trade him still just with some name value and get something else if you have another tight end you think you can work with.
Yeah, agreed. Hopefully no one takes a look at his recent weeks too much when you're trying to make those offers. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next
Just bring
game.
up his touchdown number. He'll be all right.
Yeah, exactly. We have Jets-Chiefs. This one lived out to the blowout hype. Unfortunately, we didn't see the Le'Veon Bell revenge game I was personally hoping for. He had 6 carries for 7 yards with a long of 4 yards and then had 3 catches and 31 yards through the air. But the big story on this Chiefs offense was Pat Mahomes, 31 of 42, 416 yards, 5 freaking touchdowns, 2 to Tyreek, 1 to Kelsey, 1 to Harmon, 1 to Robinson. Everybody ate, it would seem, except for Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Le'Veon Bell. What do you think moving forward about these receiving options? Are Mecole Hardman and mainly is Mecole Hardman an option again? Because lately he's been really disappointing with Sammy Watkins out. Are you adding him back to your roster, or do you think this was a one-off performance that you don't want to get trapped into believing moving forward?
Yeah, I'd say more on the side of the one-off performance. I don't really trust Mecole. I don't trust. So Patrick Mahomes likes to distribute, and that's what he does. He throws to just about everybody. I mean, if you go into a box score and see how many people caught a pass on this team, it's kind of crazy. So, yes, Mecole got a little bump this week, but they're playing the Jets, and that's what happens against the Jets. I think the Chiefs were almost just messing around this game. It was like playing a practice squad team, and that's why he threw 5 touchdowns. So I don't trust Mecole going forward. And quite frankly, I don't think I can really trust any of their running options either. You'd think when they get up 35 to whatever it was, 9 or something, that they'd start running the ball, and they didn't. So I don't know. I don't know about the running game moving forward. Makes me nervous.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a CEH 1A, Le'Veon Bell 1B situation where both of them are going to be low-end RB2 options on a weekly basis. That's where I'm seeing it right now. Because if there was a game for them to go off, it was this one.
Right, by, and even in the passing game, they're only getting 3 receptions apiece. And 3 is not necessarily bad, but when you have a game like this and you're passing to everyone else, it doesn't look good.
Yeah, tough looks for the Chiefs running game this week for their outlook moving forward, and a tough look for the Jets across the board. I kind of thought Denzel Mims could have had a good game with both Perryman and Crowder out for this one. He ends up with just 2 catches for 42 yards. Braxton Berrios with 11 targets, 8 catches, and 34 yards. 8 catches for 34 yards. It's that slot role in Gase's offense, man. I'm telling you, they just get peppered with targets, but it's pretty hard to get 8 catches for 34 yards. I mean, that's pretty wild. That's a little over 4 yards per reception.
Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on the Jets. They're all pretty pitiful. I just. I mean, if Crowder comes back, he's the start and no one else. That's still
Yeah.
the way it's always been, the way it will be.
I think we go ahead and do ourselves a favor and move on to Colts Lions. Colts win this one handily, 41-21. Rivers actually having a decent game, 262 yards, 3 touchdowns. Two of which go to Nyheim Hines out of nowhere, and then Jack Doyle gets one. So kind of a fluky day in the receiving game there. But Michael Pittman Jr. back in the game, 1 catch for 6 yards. Love to see that. And no real leading guy here. Zach Pascal led the team in targets with 6, but Hines was close behind with 5. None of them really turned that into much. But I think the biggest story here was the ground game. Jonathan Taylor was in an absolute smash spot and put up 22 yards on 11 carries. How are you looking at him moving forward? Because I was looking at him as a potential top 5 running back once Marlon Mack went down, but now, man, he just doesn't look great.
Yeah, I've kind of been off the Jonathan Taylor train for a little bit. I think we talked a little bit about him last week, maybe. But I mean, Jordan Wilkins getting 20 carries, that's extremely concerning to Jonathan Taylor's 11. He's moving down into RB2 range very quickly after that. And did he fumble? What the heck happened? I mean, when you lose carries to the backup that quickly in one game, 11 for 22, not good. It's just very concerning. Something to keep an eye on. And Jordan Wilkins could very well be a good pickup this week if Jonathan Taylor's just lost this role.
Yeah, I think, given their draft capital they spent on him, he's going to get more chances to turn this thing around, but it's not looking good. Even the involvement in the receiving game, only 3 targets. We used to, early in the season, we were seeing much more involvement there. And then you have Nyheim Hines as well, getting the reception work. So between Wilkins and Hines, man, I think they're pretty much sapping the value that Jonathan Taylor could even have here. So I'm definitely concerned about him, and I'm viewing him as a low-end RB2 moving forward, and he could fall even further than that, in my opinion. I just have not seen him from him yet.
Yeah, confirmed he did not fumble. Just extremely underproducing. 11 for 22. Once again, that's bad.
He's seeming like a David Montgomery with just less volume.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you saw Nyheim Hines' touchdown where he spun around the guy and then spun to dive for the end zone, but it was incredible. And I mean, that's the guy I'd be working with. But if you had Jordan Wilkins getting carries as well, I mean, it's just a bad situation.
Yep, this is quickly becoming a backfield to avoid. On the Lions side of the ball, we're kind of dealing with a similar situation. Adrian Peterson and DeAndre Swift combining for 8 rushing yards on 11 carries.
That's real good.
That's not good. We were kind of optimistic about DeAndre Swift moving forward, but he wasn't super involved today. He did have 3 catches for 22 yards in the passing game, but the real star here on the Lions side of the ball was Marvin Hall. 4 catches, 113 yards on 7 targets. This was just a bad day for the Lions offense. Is there anything you really want to take away from this game?
TJ Hawkinson, Kenny Golladay went down to injury, which is definitely something to monitor. He did not look good, really. It was his hip. So keep an eye on that. I think TJ Hawkinson's stock goes up a lot if Kenny G is down for a while, especially in the red zone. They like looking TJ's way, and Kenny Golladay was the other guy they liked looking at. Now that they don't have him, it's going to be all TJ Hawkinson. Marvin Hall obviously had a big game taking over that role, and may continue to do so. I mean, he's going to get the secondary corner because Marvin Jones is probably going to take the main guy. Probably worth a pickup, but TJ Hawkinson's the only one I really want to look at in terms of benefiting.
Yeah, I think Hall was a little fluky with the stat line because he had a 73-yard catch, but Marvin Jones, he's known for those multi-touchdown games. He has 2 touchdowns in this one. I like him if Golladay goes down. I'm super into Marvin Jones there. Although, early in the season without Golladay, he didn't exactly produce. So kind of tough to predict what's going to happen there moving forward. But overall, this offense not looking great.
Not at all.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next game, Steelers-Ravens. This one was a good game. The Steelers remain undefeated, and they defeat the Ravens 28-24. On the Ravens side of the ball, I know you're pretty excited to see the J.K. Dobbins 113-yard game. I'm honestly so mad at you for picking him up. I literally had an alarm set to grab him.
Yeah,
Did
so
you put the $1
the last time we discussed these guys, I said I was in on Gus Edwards. You said you're in on J.K. Dobbins. I sort of changed my tone, just moving towards the game. And the main reason was the longevity. Was the fact that if J.K. Dobbins has a good game and he happens to take over this role as the back in Baltimore, there's a lot more value there. And especially as a rookie, they're kind of going to lean towards him if he does pop off. Turns out they both did well. But how do we feel about this? I mean, 15 carries, 113 yards versus Gus Edwards, 16 for 87 and a touchdown. I mean, they both looked great. So
this hurts me, and I think my pessimistic viewpoint might be coming from the fact that I don't have him. I think this is good news for Dobbins. Anyone who has him has to be excited to see this. I will say disappointing usage in the passing game with only 2 targets. Normally he sees more than that, but it'll be interesting to see if Mark Ingram comes back next week. Is it just right back to that nightmare 3-headed monster, or has Dobbins earned himself a bigger part of this backfield, which I certainly would hope so after this performance and honestly after what he's been showing on tape all season. So I think if you have Dobbins, you're happy. And if Mark Ingram is out, you're even happier because he's got the talent. He just hasn't seen the volume. And this game, he finally got some volume and he produced. So as much as it hurts me to say, I think he's just great to have on your team moving forward. With Lamar Jackson, man, it was heartbreaking. He had, I think, like a roughly 40-yard touchdown run called back due to holding. That one, I felt like my heart was ripped out of my chest. Willie Snead seeing the most action in the passing game, 5 catches for 106 yards. And disappointing day for Hollywood Brown. Even though he had the touchdown, he only had 1 catch for 3 yards. I'm not sure if you saw this, but he even tweeted after the game. He was like, what's the point of having soldiers if you never even use them? And I mean never. So he's upset. Understandably, he's not getting any volume, and he's their most electric player among the wideouts. Do you think things are going to turn around for him, or is Marquise Brown down to low-end wide receiver 3, if not lower status?
Yeah, I mean, I've got him down in the wide receiver 3 category for sure. I don't. He's not getting the targets he needs. If Willie Snead's the guy dominating your offense in terms of the passing game, yikes. I mean, you have Mark Andrews, who's also not getting it done. Marquise Brown, he's not getting it done. Lamar is just not having – this is a tough defense, but Lamar is just not having a great season as of right now. And until further notice, yeah, I don't want to – ideally, I don't start their receivers.
Yeah, agreed. On the Steelers side of the ball, I bet you were thrilled to see Claypool's 5-catch, 42-yard, 1-touchdown game on a nice 9 targets. I'm going to be honest here. My thesis still stands. Even though Deontay Johnson had 1 catch for 6 yards on 3 targets, he was out for part of the first half with a hamstring injury. Shocker. I mean, I'm glad he came back in. It seems like he's good to go now. But I don't know. I think Deontay is for sure still the guy on this offense. I think he just had a slow day due to tweaking that hammy a little bit. Claypool, obviously, still a great asset to use in the flex. And I think next week, both of those guys are going to be really startable against Dallas, along with Juju. But yeah, I bet. Tell me your emotions on Chase Claypool right now.
It was good to see. Honestly, I would have liked a bigger game, which is, I mean, kind of I guess nitpicking at it. But I mean, yeah, I do think a lot of it was related to Deontay Johnson being a little limited in this game. That being said, he's been limited all season. So, if he keeps on battling these injuries, I think eventually, the Steelers don't put up with that very well. Eventually, I think they'll just be like, okay, fine, if you can't do it, Claypool can. And we'll just start going with this. So I think I really like to see it from Claypool. I do hope Deontay Johnson gets healthy just for the sake of him playing. But as long as he's out, Claypool's the guy. So
Agreed. I think you can fire up that entire receiving core next week versus Dallas for sure.
definitely that for sure.
On to Rams Dolphins. Tua's first start gets the dub, 28-17. What did you see from Tua today? What did you see from Tua yesterday that you liked and disliked?
Well, I mean, they won because of their defense. Their defense played really, really well. But Tua didn't even throw 100 yards, so he didn't have to do all that much. He had a nice 93 yards and a touchdown. He did hit Devontae Parker for a touchdown, which is good. But that was Devontae Parker's only catch of the game on 2 targets. The receivers on this team moving forward, I don't think you want to start them. If this is what they're going to be throwing like, and this is how their offense run. I will say it was, again, very defensively dominated game. But Myles Gaskin, 18 carries, 47 yards and a touchdown. That looks good. And he also led the team in receptions. So I do think Myles Gaskin gets this little bump in here. I like him moving forward. But the rest of the receiving options, I mean, they only threw 22 times, 12 completions. You don't want a guy who's going to get, I mean, even if you get a 25% share of that, that's 3 catches. It's not good. So I try to stay away from this receiving core moving forward.
Yeah, disappointing for my boy Mike Gesicki too. Only 1 catch for 8 yards on 2 targets. I do think better days are ahead for him, but I think we have to wait and see this Dolphins offense progressing under Tua. It's just right now it's just not seeing the volume that he needs. Wouldn't blame you if you left him to the waiver wire. I'm not sure anyone's gonna beat you to him and scoop him up right now, so totally understandable. On the Rams side of the ball, Jared Goff with a decent game, 355 yards and a touchdown, but he throws 2 picks. Darrell Henderson gets hurt in this one, and Cam Akers actually gets 9 carries. Thought he was written out of this offense. I guess not. But yeah, Cooper Kupp is the star in the receiving game, 11 catches, 110 yards on 21 targets.
21 targets. Yeah.
I mean, what? Oh my goodness. That's whack.
Yeah. Listen, let me talk about these receivers for a second, including Robert Woods, who had 8 targets, I think 7 receptions, 85 yards, and a touchdown, and he ran the ball a couple times as well. This is the frustrating part about owning a Rams receiver. It is very possible that someone had Cooper Kupp on their team this week, and they said, you know what, he's been too volatile. I don't think I can start him this week. I don't think I can risk that. I need someone consistent. And then he puts up this stat line on their bench. And then next week, they're going to go, oh, he got 21 targets. It's going to happen again. They put him in the lineup, and he's going to dud for like 6 points. I hate Rams receivers. I do. I don't think you can trust them. Do not buy into this crazy, huge performance. It's the Rams. Their game, their idea of what they're going to do next week is going to be completely different.
Yeah. The craziest part of all this is that it took the Rams throwing the ball 61 times for Robert Woods to reach 85 yards. I think you can't trust these guys week in and week out. It's going to be a tough weekly decision depending on what your lineup looks like.
It's a huge week, and I was saying this earlier last week. It is a huge week to trade them. They're going into buys, so they're not that, ooh-ah. However, they have Seattle the next week, so you can at least entice some people with that, and then say, hey, they did great this week. Look at the stat line. Let me get somebody who's going to help my team in another way, or at least be more consistent. Go for consistency, because this is not something you want.
They're one of the most run-heavy teams in the league. You just want to get rid of Cooper Kupp will never see 21 targets again in this offense. So
I don't think he has 11 receptions again. I don't think he will have 10-plus receptions again this year.
No, I completely agree.
And again, you said 61 attempts. That's the key right there. They don't do that very often because they're going to run the ball more. 61 attempts. I mean, it's you can't sustain that, and none of the receivers are going to be able to sustain these numbers. So trade them, get some value for them after this week.
100% agree. Let's move on to Bills-Pats. Bills win this one 24-21, closer than I personally would have expected. Tough game from Josh Allen, only hitting 154 yards and a pick. But the ground game, I mentioned Zach Moss as a guy I like for the second half of the season. He gets 14 carries in this one, same as Devin Singletary, turns that into 81 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he also has 1 target in the passing game. So, yeah, I think this is a completely split backfield where both of their ceilings are capped. But, I mean, this is a bigger role than I think many were projecting for Zach Moss. After, a slow couple weeks, he was on a lot of waiver wires and certainly is right now. So this is encouraging for him moving forward. How do you see the backfield playing out between Singletary and Moss moving forward?
It's hard to tell. I mean, Zach Moss looks like the red zone guy. I think they both had a good game, but it's difficult to trust either of them. I think I don't like committees, and this is a clear like even split committee. Hopefully they start migrating towards Zach Moss, but I don't see that happening. I see both of them always ending up with about 10 runs on the norm. I think they ran the ball a little bit extra. This was one of those windy games that they had this weekend. And they ran the ball probably a little bit more than they're going to in the future. I don't trust either of them.
Okay, I think that's fair. Diggs still gets his 6 catches, 92 yards. He's just established weekly wide receiver 1 option there. Cole Beasley, John Brown, both disappointing. John Brown's return from injury only gets 1 catch for 21 yards. But I think you're right. I think this was a little more run heavy given the weather conditions. On the New England side of the ball, Cam with just another down day, 174 yards, no touchdowns. But he did get 54 yards rushing and a touchdown on the ground. And then, hey, Damien Harris, talk to us about him for a second. 16 carries, 102 yards, and a touchdown. Damien Harris, is he a thing again? What do we think about him moving forward?
A little bit of the same thing where it was that windy day, so they're going to try and rely on the run. However, Damien Harris really did look good. I mean, he was breaking off big runs, average 6.5, almost 6.5 yards per carry. Is that the only question you got to ask yourself is, do you think that's something Belichick is gonna stick with? Is he gonna keep doing that? Personally, I do. I think he's getting the carries. I like Damien Harris moving forward, but don't be surprised if you get let down by the Belichick offense, because it could happen. James White has been extremely removed from this offense for whatever reason. He's been one of the most productive, but that's the thing. It could be next week that James White gets a bunch of catches, and that's where we go. So I do think Damien Harris is at least definitely rosterable, and you should hold on to him there. Would I plug him in as a start? Only in a really good matchup. Otherwise, no. Just because, until we are for sure that this is what Belichick's going to do and he's going to run the ball with Damien Harris, I want to stay away from the Patriots running backs as always.
I think the biggest question for me is what happens when Sony Michel comes back. I think he has one more week I think he's one more week on injured reserve with his quad injury. So I think Damien Harris has one more week in this unquestioned role on the ground, kind of that in-between-the-20s role that Patriots always run Sony Michel in. I think one of those guys will probably be inactive. I think it's probably going to be Sony Michel. We'll see. But if Sony Michel is active, then I feel like that kills Damien Harris's value moving forward, because then it's even more of a nightmare timeshare. So that's definitely a narrative to watch moving forward.
Yeah, at least his goal line role for sure.
Yep, and Jakobi Meyers, I'm not too excited about it. I don't really want any shares of this passing game. Do you?
Only if you're really desperate. I think Jakobi Meyers is worth a look, but at
really,
least until
desperate,
like very desperate. Yeah, very desperate. And until Edelman gets back, anyways, he's on IR, but it won't be that long, and he will be back this season.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving forward.
Yes, take us into Raiders Browns, Tucker.
Another very windy game, so it's no surprise that no one has over 30 pass attempts. Baker just didn't look good, but again, I think I'm going to blame most of that on the wind. It was I think 30 to 40 mile an hour winds there, which really does affect your throw. Really would have hoped a better game from Kareem. 14 carries, 66 yards. not ideal, especially. I mean, well, Nick Chubb's coming around the corner. I don't know if it's next week, but I think it'll be probably week 10 when he returns. And Kareem would have loved to see him get himself one more really good game, especially against the Raiders. But it doesn't do it. I still like him moving forward. Obviously, nothing's really changed there. Just a down game and in bad weather. It was also really cold. So I think you can kind of move past this game in terms of the Browns. I think typically, Jarvis had, I think, 10 plus targets, only got 4 receptions, 52 yards. And when Jarvis gets 4 catches on 10 plus targets, something's going on, which means I do think it's a lot of the wind, a lot of the weather this weekend.
Agreed. I'm not really taking anything away from this game entirely, pretty much, except that Kareem Hunt kind of has been disappointing in that bell cow role with Chubb's injury. So definitely hoping he gets a couple great games in there for you before Chubb comes back. But right now, it's not looking likely.
How do you value Jarvis moving forward?
I mean, with OBJ out, I like Jarvis, but it's a big question of the volume that he's going to get, because it's going to be split between him and Rashard Higgins, just like the volume was split between Jarvis and OBJ. But I like the 11 targets in this one in a game where Mayfield only threw 25 passes. That's a monster target share. So I think Jarvis is a good flex option on a weekly basis, and depending on the matchup, has room for more. But I'm not sold on him as a wide receiver 2 or more than that. Like I think he's a good flex, but I need to see pass heavy game scripts to be excited about him. Just because I just can't see him getting a ton of work in this offense. Do you agree with that, or are you a little bit higher on him?
Yeah, I think I feel the same way. Probably back end wide receiver 2 at this point, maybe high end wide receiver 3. I do think he has a lot of upside. If they decide to go more pass heavy in any game, if they're coming from behind in any game, I think normally they'll catch more balls than that. So I do like him as a high upside player. Meanwhile, Rashard Higgins, 1 catch for 14 yards. Like we said, kind of a dud. I expect maybe a little bit more of that moving forward, like 3 catches, something like that. But like we said, I don't think he's going to have much of a role in this offense.
Yep, agreed. On the Raiders side of the ball, Josh Jacobs, 31 carries, 128 yards, just ridiculous volume with this windy game. I'm not taking away much from this. Just the wind, everything. Carr only throws for 112 yards. I'm just gonna take this one as kind of a one-off win performance. Can we agree to move on?
Yeah, agreed.
Okay.
I would have loved to see Josh Jacobs get in the end zone. He was stuffed seriously 3 times on the goal line, which is very disappointing, but whatever. Can't argue with volume.
As someone playing against Josh Jacobs, I was thrilled by that. So no complaints here. Let's talk about Chargers-Broncos. I cannot believe the Chargers blew this game. This was the Chargers game. They were up. The Broncos scored 21 points in the fourth quarter to win the game on the final play on a touchdown pass from Drew Lock. Man, the Chargers, just like the Falcons, find new ways to lose. Herbert had a pretty solid game. Aside from the 2 picks, he had 278 yards, 3 touchdowns. He looks really good. Throwing to both Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. Both of them get a touchdown. And then Justin Jackson kind of running away with the running back role here. A little bummed given my Josh Kelly shares, but he and Troymaine Pope both actually outcarried Josh Kelly in this one. Do we think Pope has value in this backfield moving forward? This was kind of out of nowhere, right?
This was very out of nowhere. They literally just activated this guy to their roster earlier this week. It was very out of nowhere. I literally looked at the TV and I was like, who is this Pope guy and why is he getting the ball so much? But he looked good. I mean, he looked really good in everything he did. He also had 5 receptions for 28 yards. I'm a little skeptical on if I want to add someone like this, but he does take away a little value, obviously, from Justin Jackson. But not enough for it to really matter. I think he more so just took the role from Josh Kelly somehow.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even know what to say about this. Like,
I'm going to say probably just because of his yards per attempt for Josh Kelly, where they were like, we need a guy that can actually, get more than 3 yards per carry, because Kelly hadn't been looking good on the ground. That's my best guess.
Yeah, this is sad for me as a Kelly manager. I gotta figure out how to go about this. But yeah, in the receiving game, Mike Williams had a bounce back game, and Keenan Allen, getting his per usual. So I like both of these guys moving forward. Williams is going to be 100% boom or bust, but he's at least rosterable and flexible when you need a start, especially in matchups where they're going to have to throw a ton. So great. Great performance from him there on 8 targets, which we weren't seeing from him. So exactly. I like that. Drew Lock with a solid game, 248 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Phillip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon getting their carries, but not doing a crazy amount with it. I mean, Lindsay did get 83 yards and a touchdown, but next to nothing in the passing game. Gordon, on the other hand, next to nothing on the ground, but had 6 catches for 21 yards in the receiving game. I think the big thing here is this receiving game is a little bit interesting without Tim Patrick, but he's expected back next week. I expect him to be their lead receiver once again, so kind of hard to take much away from these target numbers. Do you think Jerry Jeudy is going to be more of an option in this offense moving forward? He had 10 targets in this one.
Not yet, especially with Tim Patrick out. I think I'm just more on Noah Fant, who had 7 receptions for 47 yards. I really like him moving forward. Melvin Gordon actually had 6 catches as well. If you could buy Melvin Gordon right now, would you?
Tough.
Only 8 carries, 26 yards.
I'm not gonna go out and buy him just because with Phillip Lindsay back, I'm a big Phillip Lindsay guy, and I just think that he's gonna get more and more opportunity. But I mean, I think Melvin Gordon, the reason it's not a buy right now is I think he's pretty fairly valued. I don't think he's undervalued, but just because I think this is about what you can expect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't think he's a screaming buy for me. But if you have him, you're happy. Like I think he's overall done a little bit better than people expected this year. Right. Part of that due to Phillip Lindsay being out due to injury. Are you going out and buying Melvin Gordon based on what you saw today?
If I can buy low, sure. I mean, he had 8 carries and Lindsay outperformed him, but I don't think that's going to be the norm. Most of Lindsay's yards were on one run, really long touchdown run. So I do think normally Melvin Gordon's going to get more carries than that. He's obviously busy in the receiving game, which obviously we like as PPR guys. So if someone's willing to sell him at a discount since he only got 8 carries, yeah, I'd buy him.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get through these last 3 games in these 6 minutes here. Is there anything you want to talk about in Saints Bears? Like genuinely, is there anything that you find interesting here? 9 catches, 96 yards for Kamara on 13 targets is pretty sick, but I mean, we knew that from him. Oh, the one thing I do want to mention from this game, Anthony Miller, 11 targets, 8 catches, 73 yards, something to monitor moving forward. Don't know if that's a one-off thing or if that's something we should expect as his involvement in this offense.
Seems one-offy to me, but the Saints, nothing we can really. I mean, Michael Thomas should be back next week, so that's what he said last week. But he should be back next week, and so you can't really make any assumptions about what's going to happen there in the future. Yeah, that's about it there. Not really anything interesting.
Let's move on to Niners Seahawks. We're going to want to keep an eye on George Kittle, who went out with an injury, as did Tevin Coleman. But Brandon Ayuk delivered in a smash spot. We've been hyping him up. 11 targets, 8 catches, 91 yards, and a touchdown. Beautiful. We'd love to see it. JaMycal Hasty does get a touchdown, even though he was only able to put up 29 yards on the ground. This game, just real quick, anything you want to touch on?
Hasty had about 11 carries, I think, at the first half, and they barely ran the ball after they got down to the Seahawks in the second half. They pretty much threw the entire time. But they did tell you JaMycal Hasty has this job until further notice. I mean, that's a good volume there. George Kittle got hurt. I think that's something to pay attention to. He would have had a touchdown otherwise. His backup got it. So watch that injury, see how that progresses. All the running backs for the Seahawks were hurt, so don't really take anything away there. I hope you played DJ Dallas. I did. Was very happy.
Yeah, you were tilting after about 10 minutes into the game, and you finally
and he heard my
finally,
tilts. He heard my
yeah.
tilts. But I mean, don't be disappointed about Tyler Lockett. That's the other thing. He'll bounce back.
Yep. He's worth it because of the upside. And then of course DK Metcalf with just a monster game. We'd love to see that.
All your big name Seahawks play them every week.
All right, let's head to our last game here. Cowboys Eagles. This one I owe you an apology. I'm officially in on Travis Fulgham. You know what? I was a hater. I think I'm slow to get on board with these guys just because I thought he was kind of like a Greg Ward type. Like he's just like there to patch up this offense that have been so ravaged with injuries. But even with this is what I want to see. Even with Jalen Reagor back in the lineup, Fulgham still leads the team with 6 catches for 78 yards and a touchdown on 7 targets. If he can do that with Reagor back in the lineup and Goddard there, sure. All right, I'm in on Fulgham. I think he's a guy you want rest of the season who's going to have flex value, if not more, in the wide receiver spot. This is what I need to see. So I think he's a great option moving forward. I admit that I was wrong.
Good, we agree there. Good. Austin Scott, 15 carries, 71 yards.
Tell me your thoughts on Reagor in the passing game because I was excited to watch him.
I think they really tried to get him involved. They early on they forced it to him. He got 2 catches back to back, and then he just didn't get anything else. He does interest me moving forward. Probably rosterable, definitely not startable, but something to monitor. That's where I'm at with Reagor.
Okay, I think I was pretty happy with what I saw. I mean, in his first game back, it's 6 targets, almost had a touchdown there at the end of the game, but just wasn't able to come up with it in the end zone, and does get a touchdown this game. So I think they're looking to get him involved in different ways. I'm excited to see what he can do. With the bye week to get fully integrated in this offense.
Right. Probably still more in on Fulgham, obviously. Until then, I'm not sure I really want to look into Reagor too much. But worth a bench stash if you have room.
Yeah. Goddard in his first game back just gets 1 catch, 15 yards. Played a ton of snaps. I think he's just, still coming back from that ankle injury. Wasn't at full 100%, but it's good to know he got a full game under his belt and stayed healthy. So coming out of the bye is going to be a top 7 option every week the rest of the way. Right.
And then they should have Miles Sanders back after the bye as well to get that running game going. Boston Scott, did okay, which is about what we expected. So,
yep. Cowboys side of the ball, Zeke just disappointing, man. 63 yards, 1 catch, 10 yards. I mean, Zeke's value is just plummeted with his Dak injury.
Yeah.
Is there anybody on this off? I mean, Amari Cooper at 1 catch for 5 yards. Is there anybody in this offense you think does still have significant value moving forward?
I mean, it's weird because Michael Gallup had 7 catches, 61 yards. These are the guys that we were like, no, these are the ones we don't really want, and these are the ones that produced. Yeah. Dalton Schultz has value. I think he's definitely a guy to look at. Amari Cooper, extremely disappointing. 1 catch, 5 yards. That might have been his only target. And if Ben DiNucci's just not looking that way, you got to just hope for Dalton to come back soon. We'll see. Yeah. Their O-line did hold up quite a bit better with Zach Martin back. So the offense should be a little bit better moving forward, especially when Dalton's back. But as long as DiNucci...
We all know you love yourself some Andy Dalton. So when
I think Dalton is better than Ben DiNucci. Yeah.
Yeah, so, DiNucci did not look good.
But until Dalton's back, DiNucci was just panicking. It was his first game ever, and he was throwing some ridiculous things. He should have thrown several interceptions, but got away with it. I don't know. I don't want to part until Dalton's back. I really don't.
Yeah, agreed. Any closing thoughts you have on Week 8?
We got one more game tonight, Bucks-Giants. I expect the Bucks to absolutely slaughter. Hoping they do, just not a few players, but other than that,
I'm expecting a big game from Gronk tonight.
Yep. Stay up to date on injuries because any pickups you might want to make, they're going to be based on injuries probably. We'll do a waivers show tomorrow. Anything else you got, Steven?
That's it. Tuck, thanks for joining me. I'll see you tomorrow for waivers.
Yeah, buddy. Deuces. Peace.